Well, howdy, y'all, and welcome to another high-powered episode of the High Voltage Live Show. I'm your host, Willie Snyder from NEC Question, coming to you live from the Mile High City in Denver, Colorado. I'm joined by my awesome co-host, the King James Stalkup, over there in Big Sky Country, Texas. And we give him an old hook and horns from the Mile High City. And he is the inventor and creator of the Stalkup Electrical Education online program and an inventor of this podcast. And we're joined tonight by a special guest. I will let you introduce yourself as Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector tonight.
Yes, my name is Tabitha Gomilia, and I have a podcast, Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector, and I've been in the electrical industry for 34 years. I started in the United States Navy as an electrician. I got honorably discharged, and I joined Local 1, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, out of St. Louis, Missouri, and I
Yep.
stayed there for 17 years. And then I became an electrical inspector with one of the local municipalities. And also, I have 2 degrees. I have a bachelor's and associates in construction design and management. And that's something that I have a passion for, um, code compliance in just the electrical industry overall.
Awesome.
Awesome. I
Hey,
actually went through Local 116 in Fort Worth through my apprenticeship.
Fort Worth, is that Texas or
Yes,
Indiana?
Texas,
Okay,
Texas.
Texas.
That's
Got
Fort Wayne.
okay. Fort Worth, yeah, gotcha.
hey,
I'm in real Cowtown.
Yeah, Texas,
uh,
yeah.
so we got some people joining in. We got John jumping in. What's up, John?
Hey, John.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. Oh, look who it is, James. We got a special sound effect for him.
Oh, golly.
Oh
He
man, it's
showed back up
Daniel.
again. Unbelievable.
Oh man, I can't believe it.
He did.
Um,
He lost last week, didn't he?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
just barely though. Just barely. He didn't get the tiebreaker.
Hey, Daniel, I got one for you. I was checking before I come on just to be absolutely sure. You want to know who's vying for that number one seed in hockey?
Oh yeah,
Stars. They're like four
those
points
Dallas
out,
stars.
baby. They're
Yeah.
up like 8 points on uh, uh, Colorado. So
Yeah, and
there's only what like
uh,
6-8 games left.
sounds like you really impressed John in the chat there, Tabitha. He sounds like he really likes your credentials there. Could I ask you a question? Is it true? So there was an inspector that I had, and he would come to the job, and he actually got his license in St. Louis. Is it true that you're supposed to be? You have to have a birth certificate from St. Louis to be a journeyman in St. Louis? Is that true?
That's not how I received my qualifications, so I'm not sure
Okay.
how true that is. I know that there are a number of ways that you can become a journeyman wireman or electrician in St. Louis, and just joining in the apprenticeship program is one of the many ways that you can become an
Okay.
electrician or independent electrician, and then they have other non-union contractors. So I'm not quite sure about the that part of it. I've never heard that.
Oh,
I've never
okay.
heard.
It was interesting to me because you know, he was a pretty good inspector, and it was funny because James knows this about me. I'm always studying and trying to learn new codes and try to keep pushing, and he would bring his code book to every inspection, and he would say, "Teach me something new," and
Hmm.
then I would always try to find something that he didn't know that we'd go over, and it was a lot of fun for both of us, just learning and kind of being able to be out there in the field and look at it real time. So really
I think
appreciate
that's
you
a great
joining.
idea. That if he brought his code book on the job site, he wasn't just giving you his ideals. He was
Yeah,
giving it to you from the code. He was giving it to you. He was
absolutely.
showing it to you. If he failed you for something, he was able to show you in the code. That's what we want. We don't want people to come up with ideals and telling us what to do, and it's all about how you interpret the code.
Absolutely. And so what we typically do on here is I have like a meme of the week that I pick out, and this actually happened this week. So when I put out my myth, people will comment on them, and we'll get like different comments. Well, a lot of times what people do is they'll actually break out the Canadian electrical code, and then they'll say you can't do that because the Canadian electrical code doesn't let you do it. But I think that a lot of times when they say stuff like that, they don't actually really know the code as good as they do, because I don't see like you not being able to size a branch circuit for a AC unit in America and Canada when they actually reference the same exact values on the nameplate, you know. So it's we have some interesting things there that we kind of read into.
It was interesting because I actually did a class up in Ontario, and we were they had a guy there. I forget his name, but he was covering the Canadian code, and they wanted me to cover the electrical code to show the differences between the two. There are some variances there, and there's a lot of it that does match up. You don't realize how much actually does match up. And we were going through the class, and he would say his part, and then I'd counteract it with what the National Electrical Code said. So it was really interesting, but we did like a whole week down there on that, and it was pretty interesting. So,
Well, it's
Well,
funny that you mentioned that about the code, because what you're going to be discussing tonight, it actually falls in line with the listings, the nationally recognized testing laboratory listings. So some of those, the authority having jurisdiction, we don't accept the listings.
I
It
agree.
comes from, like, if it has a CS,
CSA,
CSA,
Yeah.
we don't accept that listing.
that's right.
So that could be a misinterpretation.
Yeah, it was funny because when we were going over that, that was brought up, and I was going over explaining 110.3B, and also I went in, tied it in with the definition of approved, and then looked at 110.2 for approval. But I took it even a step further, looking at 110.3A12A8 and talking about if they come out and it ties in with your OSHA standard when you're dealing with a field installed piece of equipment, getting a field applied label to it, and explaining there's a difference. You know, they try to make all their equipment where it matches Canadian code plus acceptable as a listed label product. But if it isn't listed here in the United States and only CSA, you cannot use it here in the United States. That is a fact.
Yes, agreed.
100%. So that's what kind of comes into the meme of the week. So let's go ahead and roll it, James.
All righty.
So that's always my favorite like comment when I see them in the comments is people say you can't do that, and there's a picture of me doing it, and it's like okay, well you need to tell me why I can't do it.
Why?
You can't
Yes.
just say.
Mm-hmm.
So
You know, it's interesting, and something that I think is going to take place. Uh, I'm in the process right now of writing the new change book for 2026 that we'll have ready in September. But they made some changes actually to 110.3B, and I can tell you what they did I don't agree with, and I don't have so much problem with the text that's in there. I have more of a problem with the substantiation from the code making panel, and I have a feeling that once it gets over to the Standards Council, that there's going to be some changes made. So I won't go in depth on it, but that is one thing I will point out to people. You need to pay real close attention to what's taking place in this next cycle, because there's a lot of stuff that's been moved around. There's a lot of new articles, and you know, like we're used to Article 220, for instance. Well, now that's going to be a new Article 120, which I don't really agree with, because that's general requirements. It was in there due to wiring design and protection. by chapter
Right.
2. But there's a lot of things like that that's about to take place that people are going to have to be familiar with. And if the Standards Council don't make a change to 110.3B, I'm just telling everybody, you need to pay real close attention to what's being said and what they're going to require in this next cycle.
True.
So,
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, Tabitha, but we kind of did this as like a myth because some of the code guys said that the code was going to change drastically in 2026, and that was actually proven to be a myth. They are trying to drastically change it in 2029 to change it to like 40 chapters or something. But I really do appreciate kind of like your take on the way this goes is you're like, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about what 2023 says and how we enforce that. And I really enjoy that about how you're like, well, I'm not looking at all that because we don't know. It hasn't passed yet. It hasn't really gone that far yet. So we don't really know if it's going to pass for sure or not. So
Now, one of the things that we do here in our authority having jurisdiction, because that is mentioned a lot when you go on an inspection, like for our code cycle, we are on 14. So if you do anything above 14 and it's in code compliance, you are good. But the problem being is like you mentioned for 23, if there's something that's obsolete in 14 and they took it out of 23, you can't do that. See, if you submit your plans, you're submitting your plans for a code cycle. So it has to be 214, 217, 220, 223. It's up to the contractor. Right. Which code cycle do you want? Which code cycle? Because you can't pivot. So what are you submitting your plans under? Which code cycle?
Yeah, and you're right. You can arc fault the whole house if you want. Like you're not gonna fail that. You know.
Correct.
Like, you can do all the requirements of 23 if you want, as long as you're not creating a violation of 14.
If it meets the minimum intent of the code. But what you can't do is you can't submit your plans under 2014 and then try to do something in 2008, because the code cycle applies to 214. So everything in 214, this is what you have to do. If you submitted your code cycle for 217, and that's what your approved set of plans say, that's the code article, the code book we're going to reference all the way through that project.
100%.
All the way.
Look who we have jumping in the chat. We have Mr. David Englehart. He's a plans examiner out of Florida, and he says, "Good evening, anyone hear of the new wire waffle?" No, actually, David, I haven't heard about that yet. So.
David, I got your message, but it was right for about an hour before I was coming on, and Bill sent me a thing I had to do. I didn't even have time to reply back to you. I just got back on. So
right, yeah, I kind of was late getting you those pictures. I thought you saw them earlier, but I was kind of busy. I was up on a lift in a harness, so it's kind of hard to do that stuff.
Yeah, and that will be coming, and I'm about to put it on. I'm just giving it a few days because of the other one I thought was on, and I had it on hide for some reason. I don't know why that was.
I was gonna ask you about that.
But yeah, I'm about to put the apron on, just giving a few days, and it's interesting because we had like 27, I think, signed up, but the way they got it, it's not showing up through all the learners and everything. I don't know why theirs are not. I went back and checked, and it's the way they're signing on's the reason it's not. So
it didn't show up for me for March questions. I was gonna tell you that.
Yeah, it's just the way people are signing on, and but that's just the way it's set up. In other words, they didn't put their name in to be one of the learners to go back and forth. Okay. That's what it really is. Gotcha. So they went into their user profile and click that out. So it's no big deal. But I hadn't looked at the top scores, but I think David's at first right now. I am sure of that. So
I'm sure too. David's a smart guy over there. Well, you want to roll the myth of the week?
yeah, let's get it going.
It's time for Myth of the Week.
All right, so this week's myth of the week, I kind of ran across this several years ago, and we were actually doing some in-slab stuff. So this actually picture is kind of almost the exact thing of what we were doing. You can see the rebar in there. We were encasing boxes in the concrete. And we were having troubles with those connectors, and they were popping out, and nothing will give you a bigger heart attack than when one of those non-metallic conduits pops out of your connector while you're in the middle of a pour, and the concrete guys are stepping on your stuff. They don't care. So we took a lot of care to put like foam underneath where the box is and try to brace those connectors and make it to where we're going to have the best installation possible. And what I ran across was all of a sudden I started looking at the material that we were getting and what the cost was of those connectors and those ENT connectors, and they were about double the cost of a PVC connector. And I said, well, I could just use these PVC connectors if they're listed. And so that's kind of why we brought Tabitha on tonight, was to kind of go over some of this stuff where, you know, a lot of people said, no, you can't do that because that connector is not listed for the purpose. That connector is listed for PVC. But if you look in the listings of this, that ENT is actually PVC. So that's why they are listed as a combination. And I said approved cement. I remember that I did read some language on that they wanted you to use that what I call Smurf tube, but they wanted to use that ENT cement. I think it's all the same stuff, honestly, but I did follow the manufacturer instructions and use the correct cement. But I believe that regular PVC glue is an approved cement in there. So, and I'll let you take her away, James. He's probably got some more to go. Looks like John said, yeah, and they are the snap-in connectors. So yeah, that wasn't the part we were having trouble with, John. So John's saying that the snap-in connectors are awesome, and they are, but what we were having problems with was where the conduit actually goes into the connector popping out. They were just popping out too easy. So I was liking having that PVC connector where I was able to glue it and then get it in that way, use the lock ring.
Well,
but
looking at these, I've actually dealt with these before, and I actually I saw where you had this on the thing, some considerations about the PV fittings with your non-metallic tubing. And as I was looking at this stuff, I was like, you know, I understand when you're looking at this and making sure you use the correct glue type and all that. And you had talked to me about this last night when you had called. And I've been on many different jobs where I've seen this, especially where they were doing it in the slab. And they were having the exact problem you were talking about. They were snapping out. And a lot of it was due to them stepping on it, you know, not the electricians, other trades. And so they saw this becoming a problem. And what they did at that time, there was really no listing or labeling, because this was probably about, I'm guessing 10 years ago. somewhere in there, maybe 15. And what they did, they went down and they got some PVC gluing. But what they did not use the PVC fittings. This is what got me. They actually took the glue and put it inside those little snap connectors, and then they put it in there.
Okay.
And it actually held. So
Okay.
that was an interesting thing that I saw them do, and I remember this because I got called out. It was they were doing some work where they were adding on to the mall, and the city of Hertz, they called me out to look at it because I mean I just live right here and I know the chief real well, and he asked me if I'd come out and look, and he told me what they were doing, and I looked at it, I said, I said, to be honest, I said, it's a jurisdiction call at this point. I said, I understand where the contractor's coming from. These are snapping out. I said, I would much prefer them put something in there that's going to hold it and keep it from snapping out. And I said, I understand, some will say, oh, well, you can't use it with that or whatever. I said, but, you're looking at an installation problem here. And there's nothing wrong with the jurisdiction looking at something and making a call and an approval on the installation because they were having a problem. And so they actually did do exactly what you're showing here, but what they did it with was with the connectors and couplings that were already there, and they just put glue on the inside of it. So
Yeah, and just to give you context, we were actually doing a high-rise building when we were doing this, and just pouring one half of the slab of the ground floor was 14 hours. There was 14 hours of concrete pour wash.
oh
So
sure,
we would start at 6 in the morning, and we wouldn't get done until probably 8 o'clock at night.
mm-hmm.
You
Sure.
know, and that's a long shift. You're getting mad, and you want to do something that is reliable. And we have guys in the chat like John that had to do something similar, and they said they were using electrical tape. I don't really see a problem with that, John. You know,
Hey, duct
I
tape's
don't
good
know.
for everything.
Well, he's talking about vinyl electrical tape, but
No, he says
yeah,
duct tape.
oh, did he say duct tape?
Yeah, he said duct
Mm-hmm.
tape.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep, because I'm just waiting for you guys to finish up, but I'm taking notes. That duct tape, I do have that here. So I'm just waiting
okay.
on you guys to give me a
Oh,
chance, but
yeah,
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
It's all you. It's all you,
Okay.
girl. Go for it.
Yeah, I have.
Tabitha, call me Tabitha.
All
I
right.
also have here, Tabitha.
Hmm.
I have some of those connectors and stuff that he sent,
Oh,
uh,
okay. Hmm.
so I put those up for you.
Yes, because I work with that often. If you can see that, that's the ETL. It's very vague, but you can faintly see it. And the reason why I didn't take a picture of the actual box is because the contractor, he had to special order those fittings because after a certain size, trade size, 1 inch or more, Carline doesn't sell an inch and a quarter. So
Hmm.
I could have got the box, but they ordered like 40. So it's a special order.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
what I wanted to say about interchanging PVC with ENT or any other raceways is that there are several code articles that support why you can't do it. So that's kind of my niche in
Hmm.
this industry of telling
Right.
you and explaining to you why you can't do it, like you stated that you want to know the why. And that's the one thing about living in a show me state. We all show each other. That's one of
Right.
those things. We'll show you why you can't do it, and I'll point those things to you out in the code. So
Awesome.
one of the first thing would be the Article 110.3b. That's a given. So
Right,
if you go to Article 300.15,
right.
hold on, 15C, I think it is 15C with the listings. Sorry, I am so old school. I have the actual book here,
Oh,
looking
that's
it up.
cool. And it looks like we have John in the chat. He's an electrician out on the site I'm working at.
Okay.
And he couldn't wait to come to this podcast. And he says, heck yeah, Tabitha, I'd love to hear if that's acceptable or unacceptable.
Okay.
So
Yep. So it's I'm in 2023 300.15 F.
Gotcha.
So it tells us there as well fittings. A fitting identified for the use shall be permitted in lieu of a box where connectors are not spliced or terminated within the fitting. The fitting shall be accessible. That's not the one I'm looking for. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a
I'm sorry.
transition fitting, isn't it?
I'm looking for something specific with the raceways. The fittings in here should only be. Oh, there it is. 300.15A. The box shall be installed at each that one, and then the fittings and connectors shall be used only with specific wiring methods for which they are designed. That's what I want to point out. For which they are designed. And then the fittings, that's where I went to that F. So you only can use fittings that are listed for that project. So now what you mentioned, let's go to ENT, because that's an actual code article for that.
Yes.
ENT is in the
Yes, ma'am.
ENT, Article 362.12. I mean 362. So 362 tells you ENT and associated fittings shall be listed. So it has to be listed for that fitting, because then if you go to PVC, that's a separate fitting. So how I've seen them do that in your situation with with them stepping on it during the concrete pours is to tape it. And that may take more time, but that's to tape it. But the insurance part of it is the investigation. Like if you don't do something according to the listing and labeling, and if anything happens down the line, and if there's an investigation and they come back through that job, just says an earthquake or whatever, right? And they see those PVC fittings, who do you think they're going to blame that on? An earthquake happened, but they're going to say it wasn't installed according to the manufacturer's instructions.
Yeah, so I did go through that, Tabitha, and verify that those PVC terminal adapters are listed for that ENT. They are listed for use, so you could use the ones that's in their picture, or you could use the PVC ones. Either one's listed. They just said you had to use the approved cement when you did it. So like with that fitting that you have in your picture, you didn't have to use any cement with that.
No, that's for interduct.
Okay. Yeah, but the ones that we had were like a snap-in style like that. You didn't need to use any cement with those. But then they had a actual thing that said if you could use this same product, which I call Smurf tube, but you could still use that Smurf tube with those PVC connectors as long as you use PVC cement.
So I'm the type of inspector, I wouldn't doubt your word. I wouldn't doubt you, but if you could prove that to me, if you wanted me to believe that when I got on that job site, if you had that information available for me and it was there spelled out the way you're saying, I would pass that. I would pass your inspection.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I always bring the manufacturer instructions. Like, that's kind of one of the arguments that me and King James have gotten into with some of these other guys on social media is they're saying that the code overrides the manufacturer instructions. And how can you say that? You know, because the code actually says you must comply with 110.3b. So that's where we get into some of these arguments a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely would have those manufacturer instructions.
Now, could you repeat that? So they say that the code overrides the manufacturer's instructions.
So I'll give you an example. So I installed a EV charger for one of my clients, and it said that GFCI protection was not required as long as it was hardwired. And so all the inspector wanted to see was that manufacturer instructions say that personnel protection is provided with that EBSC equipment, and no additional GFCI protection is required.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed him, I hardwired it, I showed him the manufacturer instructions, and it passed.
Mm-hmm.
And there, all these people on social media are trying to say that that's still a code violation per 110 or per 210.8F.
They're wrong.
One, okay, 210.8F.
They're saying that is an outdoor outlet and that it needs GFCI protection ahead of the GFCI protection.
This argument on fittings, let me, and Tabitha, this will help you. Do you have a UL White book?
Yes, I do.
If you go look at the UL White book that deals with fittings, it'll tell you there the outside diameters of ENT are such that standard connectors, couplings, and outlet boxes for rigid PVC conduit can be employed for ENT that is also constructed of PVC. Installation instructions are provided with each bundle or coil of ENT outlining the procedures to be used when employing cemented-on PVC conduit fittings and outlet boxes. These techniques include a specific cement to be used as well as the application method.
I got it. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why I always go a lot of times to the White Book and a few of these other standards and stuff, because they're actually giving this permission to actually use the PVC on there with a specific cement.
Oh, and here's one of the guys that's coming in now saying that the NEC does override the listing. If a manufacturer says not to install something on GFCI, you cannot install it where GFCI is required. So we're just going to go back to the caveman days, I guess, Jeremy. We're just going to have to use candles and, you know.
Well, you have to follow the manufacturer's instructions because that's the listing and labeling. So if they tell whatever they tell you to do, that's what you do.
Yep, I agree.
That's what you do.
100%.
Because if you don't follow the instructions and if anything happens, you're in violation. Yeah. Because that's where the investigating come in at, because that they'll know if it wasn't followed. So I agree with that part.
And King James is actually a special expert for like court cases and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he knows this because they call him in to ask him to interpret all this and stuff. So that's why I appreciate having his thing on this. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'll let me, he's made that statement. Okay, put that statement back up there real quick.
The first statement?
Yeah, that the NEC does override the listing. Okay. What I want everybody to look at here, I'm actually going to share my screen here. I want everyone to see this. Now, if I go in and you look at OSHA 1910.7, and this doesn't matter if it's residential, commercial, industrial, this applies to all electrical equipment. Mm-hmm. And when you go in and you look at 1910.7, it's on the screen right now. And it talks about your test standards, what they require. And it literally says in C1, recognized in the United States as a safety standard providing an adequate level of safety and compatible, now listen to this, compatible with and maintain current with periodic revisions of applicable national codes and installation standards. So when they design this equipment and everything, they have taken the National Electrical Code into consideration, any installation standards, and this is when they're writing their procedures for this test standard. And they're basically, if they tell you no GFCI protection, guess what?
No GFCI
protection. Mm-hmm. And then I want to point out the next part in C3, because listen to what it says. Developed by a standards developing organization under a method providing for input and consideration of use. Now look at everybody that's involved in this when they write these test standards. Industry groups, experts, users, consumers, government authorities, and others having a broad experience in the safety field involved. Now, I don't know how much more clearer that can be and why they're arguing this. And then they tell you, in lieu of those three things I just read, It says the standard is currently designated as an ANSI safety designated product standard, or it is an ASTM standard that's used for evaluations of a products or materials. And when they come in and they say, oh, well, the code overrides that. Well, my whole point behind this, if that is true, then who takes responsibility for that piece of equipment?
True.
Because the manufacturer is responsible for that piece of equipment. So if you put GFCI protection on it and say they go in and just say it's a refrigerator, for instance, and they got all this meat in there, they got, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of meat in there, and all of a sudden they lose all that meat and everything, and they go to sue. Who's going to be responsible? Well,
the electrical contractor.
Yeah, and if I'm an electrical contractor and I have a refrigerator, or say freezer, whatever it is, and I say, do not take and put GFCI protection on that. And then the inspector tells me, no, you got to put GFCI. As a contractor, I'd say, well, I want to get that in writing because this piece of equipment specifically tells me not to put GFCI protection on it. And I'm not going to take responsibility because the manufacturer is not going to take responsibility if you did something other than his manufacturer's instructions. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I would have that written. Well, I can tell you, because I've been in this long enough, the authority having jurisdiction is going to say, well, I'm not going to require that. The manufacturer says that, therefore, no GFCI protection. But we get people like Jeremy and Ted Fritz and all these other guys over there, and they say, oh, no, the code overrides that. Well, you can't. The code cannot override the listing and labeling.
It works hand in hand.
That's right.
It works hand in hand.
And when they tried to tell me OSHA doesn't cover residential, I said, the hell they don't. OSHA comes in, any of this equipment and everything that's done in order for you to become a NERDL, a National Recognized Testing Laboratory, or they can call it a QTL, Qualified Testing Laboratory. You have to meet these requirements right here to get that certification. So if they're meeting these certification requirement that's required in these first three in C1 through C3, and they have all these industry groups, experts, and everybody saying no GFCI protection, then I would take their word for it because that is how they designed the test standard for that piece of equipment. So,
yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, Tabitha, to kind of bring this into a little bit of a different light, the whole thing that came up was they actually, I went and looked at the actual standard for the EBSE, and it says that personnel protection is provided for the input and output by the UL standard for that equipment. So that means that you don't have to have any additional protection for the branch circuit. And these guys are saying you have to have protection for the branch circuit and protection, with the equipment. But when it's hardwired, which I agree, like when you look at 625-54, it says GFCI protection is required for receptacles, which I agree with. Because you're plugging that equipment into a receptacle, that receptacle needs GFCI protection. But when the equipment is hardwired, it already provides that personnel protection.
Can I handle this one real quick?
Okay.
So nobody said anything about OSHA citing somebody for working on their own house, Jeremy. I never even stated that. I said the electrical equipment and everything is designed by a NERDL or a qualified testing laboratory. That has nothing to do with citing someone for working on their own house. But yeah, if OSHA wanted to do that, I'm sure they could. They're the federal regulatory agency on it. And, I don't know why there's such an argument that's saying, can OSHA cite somebody? Yeah, they could if they wanted to. Who's to say that they couldn't? I mean, if you go out there and you take some of these big homes, like we got some homes here in Texas that are 20,000 square foot. They're like a commercial building. Well, here in Texas, I think it's after you get over 6,500 square foot or something like that, you actually have to come in and you got to put a sprinkler system in. I mean, you start doing this in some of these houses, you know, they've got 800 amp services on them for all the stuff that they're feeding at their house. It's like a commercial building, a big commercial building. And they have certain things that they do. I've been out on many jobs. I've been on one where they have a complete full generator set up that is out from the house. It's in a big building and everything. And then they've got their tanks and everything there. It's feeding the generator system. And then that comes in. And then on top of that, they've got another field that's set there where they're taking and they have a photovoltaic there. And they've got transfer switches and everything else. It's like an industrial job. So, yeah, if they were doing something illegal and somebody got hurt and OSHA wanted to go out there, yeah, they could go out there and cite them if they wanted to.
Yeah, so one of the things that's interesting too, James, to piggyback on that, is if an OSHA employee sees an OSHA violation, they are required by law or by their code of ethics to stop it, to save that life. So that's something like if they see a violation, they're driving down the road, they see somebody doing something unsafe, they're supposed to stop and save that person's life. It doesn't matter if their employer cares about them or not.
Yeah. If you're doing work that is unlicensed and illegal in your home, and the authority having jurisdiction find out about it, they can fine you.
Sure, they
can be fined. Yeah. They can tell you to rip it out. You can be fined, or it has to be abated. So there's no such thing as not having penalties for doing electrical work without a license, because you will be penalized.
Absolutely.
Sure. And if you look, OSHA has jurisdiction, and it ain't limited just to commercial industrial. I mean, that's a straw man argument. I mean, you can't say, oh, it only applies to commercial industrial when all the equipment that they certify is for residential, commercial, or industrial.
Mm-hmm.
That's
why they were set up. Yeah,
that's right.
If we didn't have OSHA, it'd be like the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
Sure it would.
That's the reason.
We'll let you continue, Tabitha. Sorry for getting Weed Man. He's kind of a hothead out there, a little troll that just comes join the show to cause problems for us. But
no, that's the only thing that I was really trying to bring together, was that when you notice one article in the code, there are other supporting articles in the code that support that. So 110.3b is backed up with those other articles like 300.15, and then you'll go to that raceway, whatever raceway you're using for that particular connector. So that's what I was trying to point out, and just to bring home the fact that if there is an investigation and you do not do it according to the manufacturer's instruction, like you just spent the last 10 minutes explaining, there are penalties.
I apologize.
Yeah. No,
I might be long-winded. No, because sometimes you just got to keep pushing the point until you get it across, because that's something that's critical that the society should know. But if they don't get it, you just have to explain it in different ways. And you did a good job with that.
Tabitha, I want to thank you, because you just said something that I've been saying for a long time. And Bill will know this, and anybody that watches this podcast. I've said you can't just take one section and just apply that to everything. You have to take the code book as a whole, and you've got to look at all different sections and everything in order to get the proper answer. You know, it's sort of like, and ours only publications do this, but you go in and we may be explaining something, and we may give you 4 or 5, and we've been up to where we're getting 12 code sections in a code loop of all the things that you got to look at in order to determine the correct answer based on the type of installation. And what you just said, I've said Bill, I've said it so many times, and you said exactly what I've been saying for years.
Yeah, because the comprehension, because one article can take you to 3 different articles. And you
That's
have to
right.
take and apply all of those together to get comprehension.
That's right.
Yeah,
You are
100%.
1,000% there, love.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun having you on, Tabitha. Just for this fact, we have people in the comments. David Englehart says, look up wire waffle for a new multiple NM cable connector that is supposed to be listed per 334.6. I am
Retiring for the evening. Have a good
All
night,
right.
David.
Yeah, David. Sorry, it's hard for me to read sometimes when I put that thing on there.
You're getting old. You need to get glasses, boy.
I guess, man. I just need a big old Texas screen like you. I know you got the big old 77-inch over there.
Hey, man, I'm upscale, baby, when I get into this stuff.
Yeah, it's like a passion. You have to have a passion for it.
Well, you know what's funny is when we started this, Tyler, I had no freaking clue what I was doing. At our first podcast, I made about 3 mistakes. I just wasn't 100% sure, but I created all the intros and everything. And it took me, what do you say, about the 3rd podcast where I had it running smooth? Yeah. It was about the 3rd podcast, but man, I was like, this is a whole new ball game. And now it's nothing, but there for a while, I was like, damn, man, this is hard.
Yeah, and just to let Tabitha know, I was trying to kind of collaborate with other podcasters out there, and I went to a bunch of different people, and they didn't want to collaborate with me, and then I was like, well, I went to James, and I was like, hey James, this is a really good idea. It's a lot of fun. We do it on Thursday nights. We could just talk code. We could just talk whatever we want, and we could do different segments and everything. And he's like, "Oh man, that's a really good idea." And so we just kept building on it, And we did start out myth of the week, and we did the meme, and we kind of just kept adding stuff. Now we have one called Man vs. Machine. So I asked a code question to him, and then we go type it into ChatGPT and see if ChatGPT gets it right. And I think it was 2 weeks ago, both of you guys got it wrong, so it's pretty funny. And I think the reason I wanted to do that, because there's a lot of students that want to cheat on their homework and just ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT doesn't get it right every time.
Oh, okay.
And so that's kind of why I wanted to do that segment to kind of expose. Well, for one, King James, I think he's he's got 3 wrong out of 100, I think, so far.
More like 150. You're on because he just
fun.
started doing them after we had done 30 or 40 of them. Then he started numbering them.
Well, no, that's the myths. But what I'm talking about is the actual code questions. So the code questions, I think I haven't even hit 100 yet, but he's only got 3 wrong. I got him on 2 of them out of his own book. So, I'm proud of that one.
It's funny because he's asked me on all 3 of them, and I'm like, I can't remember if that changed or not. I said, it's one of these 2. It was the second one. I was right around the exact section that it was at, but and some of them he'll ask me. One of them, he asked me a wild calculation, and I was like, I didn't even calculate. I said, I'm just guessing. I'm not going to waste my time calculating that whole thing, and almost got it too. I was just two numbers off or something like that. So
yeah. So just so you know, Tabitha, so James's dad actually wrote a bunch of code publications as James Stallcup Sr.
Okay.
And his dad actually gave him the task of going through and checking all the math all the publications, so to make sure all the math is right. So that's where
Wow.
I'm like, oh really? Are you really that good? And so then when we do this live, he doesn't have the chance to like use a calculator and do it like so. I'm
Wow.
kind of going a little bit below the belt when I do that, but I try to get him to guess as much as possible because if I go toe to toe with King James, I'm done. I can't. Like if he put me on the hot seat, I'd be over. I couldn't even hang. I'd be guessing too. So.
And he doesn't ask easy questions either. They're all like freaking hard questions. I mean, stuff that you're going into a master exam and you got to look that crap up. He won't ask me just some easy one, Oh, hey, what's the clearance in front of electrical equipment? 3 foot. He won't give me conditions or anything like that. It's something that I hadn't looked at in freaking 20 years, I'm like, yeah, could you make them at least a little easier?
Yeah, because
What's your question this week? What's it about?
I just did a little Ohm's Law one about find resistance, and if you have it on 240 volt, then go to 208 volt. You just have to find the resistance, and it's pretty simple. It's like what kilowatts would be running at 208 versus 240.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna have to square something. Okay, I got it. All right. Got to square the voltage and divide by power or some crap like that.
Yeah, it's simple. It's easy. Dude,
Wow.
I give you easy ones, man.
Yeah. Calculations. That was something that when I started the podcast, I made sure that I put it on there, no code calculations, because originally I wanted to ask the lady electrical inspector, like if you had code questions that you needed to ask while you were doing something before you failed the inspection, ask the inspector. But it didn't quite go the way I wanted it because I didn't have the following that I probably need. But I'm just pivoting and just moving forward. I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah, those are things you do. You just, it's sort of like I'll tell you one, like the guy we were just talking about, Jeremy. He actually said that if you have to use a PowerPoint to instruct, then you're not a real instructor. I was like, that's and then he backed it up saying it again on the podcast, and I was like, that's not a nice thing to say, because PowerPoints, I've always said, if you got a really great illustration, picture or something, a picture or illustration is worth 1,000 words.
And it depends on how you learn, because we all don't have the same learning, the way we go about learning. Because I'm more of a hands-on person. I can read it, but I still have to actually do it. Like
Sure.
I'm more of one of those type of people. But like the code calculations.
Motor controls. You can read all you want about motor controls till you do it.
Until you do
you
it.
don't know what the hell
One
you're
of those
doing.
things you have to do. Yeah, or lifting switch gear. I mean, you can read the instructions, but then how do you get that switch gear in that door? How do you roll it down that hall? How do you do all of those things?
Sure.
So it's one of those things.
So I'm really actually kind of like thinking it's really cool for you to. I'm kind of pigtailing on your success, Tabitha, because like you had the call in part. Like that is really cool. Like I've never seen anybody's podcast that had a call in part, and I kind of told James about this. I said on the podcast that I did because I kind of did a little bit of like just kind of calling in on the call-in show and asking you questions and stuff, and it was really fun. I had a lot of great dialogue on that. And are you still doing the call-in part of it?
Okay, so what happened there was on Blog Talk Radio, they went out of business. So that was my connection for the call-in. So now I'm doing it through Riverside FM, and they allow you to have in-session studios like we're doing now, where I can invite guests like you're doing. So I'm looking for another platform or another way using that platform where I can have the call-ins. Because when I did that for like 6 months straight, I didn't have anyone call in, maybe 3 calls. And now since Blog Talk is gone, I just need another platform or another way to have them call in, because that was my avenue to
Well,
have
one
them
of the
call
things
in.
you can do is like I use StreamYard.
Mm-hmm.
In StreamYard, they can just you can provide the link, and you can have so many that are lined up on the bottom here that come on, and you can just bring them on, let them ask the question. You can see each other face to face.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to look into that because as I grow my followings, that's what I want to do because I really want to ask the questions. I want to answer the questions because St. Louis is becoming a state where we are having a lot of out of town contractors come in, and what I'm finding is that they say that that's not done in their state, but the National Electrical Code is national. It's for the United States.
That's right.
So that's what I'm not understanding, and before it gets out of hand, that's what my contribution to the industry will be, you know, like
Awesome.
to just code compliance. I just love this stuff. Really,
Yeah.
I, I just
Yeah,
love it.
and the thing is that was really awesome. Like when I called in on your call-in show, I was trying to show people that I wasn't arguing with you,
Mm-mm.
and the thing was that people are like, "Oh, you can't argue with the inspector." I wasn't arguing with you. I was having a conversation. We are having a dialogue. I was saying, "Well, look at this angle, look at that angle, And the thing was, it was like we were not arguing,
Mm-mm.
and it was a respectful dialogue. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. That's why I put it on my Nat King Code podcast.
Hey,
But that's a
Tabitha.
good thing as well because we were able to show people how to talk to each other. Like
Absolutely.
you are the contractor, I am the electrical inspector. As long as we have
Yep.
respect for each other, we can resolve the issue. But when you lose that respect, and when if cursing, like when people sometimes they'll curse and they'll be like, "Oh, you know how they'll do it, and they'll use the F word." Now you may be cussing just out in the air, but if I'm standing
Hmm.
in your presence, you're cursing at me. So
Oh,
that's how that will be looked at, So that is how you talk with the inspector and how an inspector talk with the electrical contractor. And then you will find
Absolutely.
mutual respect and you can get answers.
Tabitha,
Absolutely.
when I first started inspecting, I was 24 years old. I
Wow.
was the chief electrical inspector for the city of Grapevine. And I had my master's when I was 22 because I started doing electrical work when I was 14, working for my grandfather, and they gave me 2 years experience because I also worked half a day through my junior and senior year and worked 40 hours during the summers. And as I was going through my apprenticeship through the union, the first 2 years I prepped, and then at the age 20, I took the journeyman, and then we had the 2 years of journeyman. Then you could take the master's at 22. Well, when that job came open, I wanted to apply for it, and basically, I kicked everybody's rear end on all the testing and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they hired me because I knew the code and calculations, all that. But one of the things I did when I got that position is I went out and I met with the contractors that were doing the commercial and doing the residential, and we had some industrial that were going on. And basically, I gave them, I did a checklist of what we wanted to see, you know. And when I did that, I'm telling you, we had very, very few. I mean, usually it was on an industrial commercial job or something special that was going, but we very seldom ever had a problem. But if they ran into something, they called me and said, "Hey, we got a problem. We want you to come out and look at it."
Mm-hmm.
I go out there, look at it. We'd resolve the issue and move right along.
Right.
And our jobs were on point. They were moving quick. The contractor knew what we expected out of them. They took care of it. And if they saw something, they called us right away. And then I'd drive out there and meet with them. Sometimes I go have lunch with them. And they were ecstatic because they said, other than Fort Worth, where my dad was a chief at that time, they said that is the smoothest two cities to work in because they knew what the inspection wanted within the city.
Mm-hmm. That's why the authority having jurisdiction, they do have electrical ordinance.
That's right.
So guidelines that the electrical contractors follow because this is a business that's been going, been around for a long time. So these things are just not things that just happen this one time. They are reoccurring things. So we have policies in line to help people get through inspection processes, just in case you haven't done something. Like we have an issue here in this area with 3-inch can lights. 3-inch can lights
Oh, wow.
or below.
Yep.
Now, we know that they are coming out with the LED type now with the drivers. Now, the authority having jurisdiction, we would like for you to use one hand. Now, this is after the can lights are installed. One hand to remove that driver, remove those splices, remove everything, and put it back together with one hand.
Wow.
Now,
I guarantee that's not in
the manufacturer will say that we're wrong, but that's the code. It has to be accessible.
Wow.
All the wiring has to be accessible. You just can't throw that driver back up there after you changed it out. Like you're doing a service call. You come there, and for the most part, if you'll get tired and you say, I can't get it in, and you'll just throw a hot driver up on a drywall ceiling with particles and dust. So that's the problem that we're having. But the authority having jurisdiction, we had to put out a policy for the contractors because they were buying these can lights. And if you go into a commercial setting and you buy 500 can lights, 2-inch can lights, and you install them, and then we come out and tell you that they're not listed for that. They're not listed because of, it's against the code because they're not accessible. And now you have to remove those can lights. You just did double work. That is so much rework. And now you have to send those back to the manufacturer. You have to get new lights. Whose fault is that? Is that the architect fault, the engineer fault, the plan review fault? Whose fault?
Yeah.
It's my fault.
100%.
It's your fault.
It's always your fault, Adam. Coming here already talking crap.
We have another collaboration podcast. Adam from Team SOS coming at us from Winnipeg, Canada. He is coming to join us for the Willie Quiz segment. Thanks so much, Adam, for coming and joining us. Appreciate it. We have another podcast, Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector. So if you have any electrical inspection questions, make sure you know who to call, and you can send her an email at asktheladyinspector
at gmail.com. Yes.
Gmail.com. And Adam will be calling you and asking you why his computer is sparking and blowing up and his live stream is dropping.
Yeah. I've been using the electric bill, maybe.
What did you ever figure out what happened when you were crashing the other night?
I think I needed to make some adjustments to my streaming platform that's best suitable for my computer specs. So I think I was just overwhelming my computer essentially. So I had to just lower the settings on that.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I went through that. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, hey, Tabitha, you got to stay on and answer the questions through the Willie Quiz with us.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give it a try. How much longer do you guys have?
Well, you can actually just stay for the Willie Quiz and then take off if you want.
Okay.
We just have like the Willie Quiz and then the tour review and a couple other things, but
Gotcha.
the Wall of Shame. So it's like James is the one that keeps adding segments. I just give him
Oh, that's
ideas
a
and
bunch
he
of
keeps-
crap. He calls me all the time. Hey, I got a new segment we can do. I'm like, damn, dude. I was like, I mean, I had to put all this together. I mean, he talks to me last night at 12 o'clock. I said, all right, I got to let you go. I got to go in here and get all this crap ready for tomorrow. He's like, okay, all right. And then he calls me right for us. Oh, did you get those other pictures? I'm like, hell, I just got home. What are you talking about? I hadn't seen anything, so I had to get those ready real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let him sit
He
there
always
and lie
likes
to
to
y'all.
blame
He's
me,
always
but-
adding crap to me.
Just wait till you don't get them right this week. So
All right, let's cue it up. I'm ready for
All right.
this. Let's see what it's on this week.
yeah, it's easy.
Just
All
so
right,
you know,
so-
Tabitha, I'm calling a bunch of crap on that. I don't believe that Bill's body looks like that.
Yeah, and actually, to be fair, Adam actually made that intro for me, and actually Batista doesn't look like that anymore. So
Oh yeah, I know for sure.
I'm actually happy about that.
All right,
All right,
let's see
so
what we got.
such an easy
Okay.
Willie quiz. Thanks everyone for joining us. Question number 1. Which of the following teams was the first Canadian team to win the World Series? Was it A, the Montreal Expos? Was it B, the Toronto Blue Jays? Was it C, the Vancouver Mounties? Was it D, the Ottawa Champions? Or was it E, the Hamilton Cardinals? Good luck, everyone.
That's for you.
Oh, dude, that's because look what he said. He said, "I've seen Billy Brick."
Daniel. You're lying. All right, I'm
so
gonna let
Daniel's
everybody
trying to
answer
win.
because I know the answer to this one.
Daniel's trying to win. He's going B right away.
I think it's B as well.
Yeah, that's what I have here. I broke down B.
It is. Y'all got it right.
Ooh.
All right, so we have a 100% correct answer for question number 1. I told you guys it was easy. Told you it was easy.
He starts
All
off
right.
with an easy one, then they get freaking weird after that.
Dude, do not get on my game, all right? So, question number 2. Which Major League Baseball team is the only one to have played home games in 3 different countries? A, Toronto Blue Jays. B, San Diego Padres. C, Montreal Expos. D, New York Yankees. Or E, Chicago Cubs. Good luck, everyone.
Well, this is an interesting one. I think it's B or E. I'm trying to think here. San Diego played Mexico. I know they played there. They played over, and
Ooh, actually, Daniel's going C.
I'm gonna stick with my Canadian guys and go with A, Blue Jays.
damn, I was not. Those two wasn't even on my radar. I know. I think it's B or E. I'm gonna go with. Well, let me think here. I know they played over Monterey. They played over there one time, but I can't. I've got 2 spots. I see Chicago and San Diego.
So just so you know, Tabitha, I actually put in the 2nd place and the 3rd place answers in there too, just to confuse King James, you know, because I know he's already been there. He's already been to San Diego and watched a game in Chile, you know. So you gotta be careful, you know.
I hadn't watched the game overseas yet, but I've been a lot of places, done a lot of things. I'm gonna go with B. I think it's the Padres.
B?
I know they played in Mexico a few times, and then they were at another spot over in Japan somewhere, Osakawa or something like that. In Chicago, Cubs have played overseas a few times, but I definitely know the Padres have played in Mexico and they've been overseas. One time I know of. So yeah, I'm gonna go with B.
Okay, so since with that logic right there, because it says 3 different countries.
Mm-hmm.
So the United States, Mexico, that's a good one, and then Canada. So it would be the A. Because if they played in Mexico, those would be the 3 countries. Or Colombia.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the Padres.
I just thought
playing
about
over
it because
there.
I didn't know which one until you said Mexico. Because at first I was going with New York Yankees, and then you said Mexico, so Toronto. That's the only one that makes sense. Or the Montreal Expos.
See what
One of
I'm
those.
thinking of. I'm looking at Padres. I know they played
Okay.
in Mexico, and I'm sure they played Montreal because that would be in their league there. Then I think they were one time overseas. I'm going. I'm going with B.
I'll go
B?
with A.
So Tabitha's gonna copy Adam. Looks like King James is going solo with B. San Diego Padres. The correct answer is C. Daniel
See, I
J.
knew it was
Tabitha.
one of the Canadians. I knew.
Tabitha almost had
Oh.
it. You said it too. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was the Montreal
Yeah.
Expos.
I almost won. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
All
looks like
right.
Daniel takes the lead. It looks like that tiebreaker is getting more heated up as we speak. All right, question number 3. Who was the first Canadian-born player to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame?
I know this
was
one.
it A,
I
Larry
don't know.
Walker? Was it B, Fergie Jenkins? Was it C, Joey Bodo? Was it D, Russell Martin? Or was it E, Justin Morneau? Good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
I'll
right,
let
well,
everybody
King
else
James already
guess. I
knows.
know this one.
King
I
James
will-
already knows the answer.
I will guess B.
All right, looks like Daniel goes B. Adam goes B.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't know any of those people. No.
So
I
Larry
guess I'll go
Walker-
C.
No, go
So
B.
Larry Walker.
Go B. I'll go B.
Go B. It's Fergie.
I'll go
So
B.
Larry Walker, he's what we call the Blake Street Bombers here in Colorado Rockies. So I'm actually going to the Colorado Rockies game tomorrow. But Larry Walker he's one of the Blake Street Bombers. He was not one of them. So it was not A. But it was B. You guys are all right. So good
okay.
answer. Glad King James convinced you. Looks like you guys are agreeing on a lot. Like I need to quit going against the inspectors here. You know, like
If I tell you to pick one, pick it because I will know it.
yeah. King James knows a lot, and Adam will attest to this.
I know this one too.
All right. So question number 4. What was the original name of the Toronto Blue Jays stadium when it first opened in 1989? Was it A, the Sky Dome? Was it B, the Rogers Center? Was it C, the Exhibition Stadium? Was it D, the Maple Leaf Park? Or was it E, Bell Center? Good luck, everyone. All right, so King James already knows it, so everyone just copy King James and you'll have a right answer, I guess.
You know what's funny is I was actually in Toronto, and they it was I was trying to remember. It was back in 1988, 90, somewhere in there. I think it 19. Yeah, it was in the 90s, I think, early 90s, and I was down there with Dad. We were looking, as we're on the 7E committee, and they were looking at the PPE and stuff, and it was with Oberon, and they had taken us to the game, and that's the only reason I know the name of the stadium.
Okay. All right. Well, Daniel says A, the Sky Dome. Is he
Yeah.
correct, King James?
Should be Sky Dome, I'm pretty sure.
All right, Tabitha, go with B, Rogers Center.
I'll go with A.
Going
I'll
with
go
A?
with A.
Okay.
You okay? B? Oh, I don't know. I'll go with A. He the Canadian. Right?
You're all correct. It is the Sky Dome.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I know. That was the Rogers Center when it first opened.
I think it was the Sky Dome.
All right, there's a challenge called out. I'm going to look and see.
All right. I think it was called the Sky Dome. I'm pretty
What,
sure.
what was, let me see what the question was. I could have swore that was the Rogers Center. Original name of
All right, we're giving you a wrong answer if you lose this challenge.
Original.
You could win the whole game right here if you're right.
A name for Toronto Blue Jays. I could have swore that was right. Let's see what it says here.
I could be wrong, Tabitha.
I'm looking.
I'm not been challenged that much on my challenge flags.
The original name of the Toronto Blue Stadium. Okay, 1989. Hold on. The original name of the.
Here we go.
Original
Rogers
name.
Center, originally Sky Dome.
Yeah, in 1989.
Damn.
Yep.
Boom! All right,
I just went with
King
him.
James.
He was from Canada.
So that must have been in 1994, and they had changed it to the Sky Dome, or changed it to Rogers Centers right after that.
Yep.
God damn.
Boom! Gotcha! Gotcha!
Mm.
King James, 2 wrong answers tonight. Oh, dude, what's up? Worm Brothers in the house. Thanks for showing up, Worm Brothers, man. We have so many cool people that come in as regulars that jump in the chat. Thanks so much.
I have no idea on this.
Question number 5. Which U.S. city was the first to lose a Major League Baseball team to Canada? Was it A, Seattle? Was it B, Washington, D.C.? Was it C, Milwaukee? Was it D, St. Louis? Or was it E, Memphis? Good luck, everyone.
I have no freaking clue on this one. Which
So just to
U.S.
give you
city
the-
was the last to lose an MLB team to Canada?
So just to give you my formula, Tabitha, every time I do a quiz when King James says he doesn't know something, it goes into my computer and I freaking try to pick something that he doesn't know to try to make my quiz next time. So, like, I want him to not know. Like, actually, the guests actually do pretty good. So far, Daniel is winning currently. So,
Well, I got to do a process elimination.
Mhm.
So Seattle's been there a long time. Milwaukee Brewers been there a long time, and St. Louis Cardinals been there a long time. And then Memphis, they don't even have a team now. And Washington D.C., they actually come in. So it's got to be B or E.
so Daniel picks E, and if you use your formula, you're gonna have to copy Daniel to try to take a win tonight. So I don't know.
Yes, because I would say either. I was going to go with Memphis just because it's close to St. Louis, and I did not want to say the St. Louis Cardinals. So I'll say
Right.
Memphis or Seattle. I'll just say Seattle because I don't know.
All right.
Seattle.
So where are you at, Adam? Where we got?
I'm gonna
Adam.
I'm gonna guess St. Louis D.
Oh, he's going against Tabitha. Tabitha's actually in St. Louis. So, all right.
I'm gonna go with. Hold on. I'm gonna
Okay.
go with. I'll just go something different. I'll go B.
All right, and King James has it right. Daniel still
B.
picks the win.
Who's y'all daddy?
Who's the daddy? Okay.
I would like to try
no.
the counter challenge question too.
All right. So, do we have a tie between King James and Daniel? I say no, but I say Daniel wins this outright. But I will go
You
ahead.
got to have another question. You got a backup one that you just.
I
asked,
will.
don't you?
Tiebreaker.
I will go ahead and drop the tiebreaker question. So the Toronto Blue Jays won their first World Series against the Atlanta Braves. What was the final score?
The
of
closest.
game winning,
The close.
Whoever come closest without going over.
closest, the final score.
Oh, this is. I sort of remember this because I think I'm going off memory here, but I think Toronto had like 6 or 7. I think Atlanta had like 2 runs or something. So I'll say 7-3.
7-3.
Mhm.
Good one.
Toronto
We
had
got,
7.
I'm gonna go 4-2 Toronto.
Ooh, looks like he copies Daniel J. So what are you going with, Tabitha?
I have no clue. It's the tiebreaker between those two. Who's going to win?
So what was the score?
The answer is
So what do you say, Tabitha? I mean,
I have no
like-
clue. I was
Okay.
allowing them to tie break.
Okay, so the closest is Daniel J. It was 4-3. So Daniel J. and Adam actually win the tiebreaker against King James. So Daniel takes an outright win this week, and he is the 7-time Willie Quiz champion. Thanks so much, Tabitha, for joining in our fun little quiz that we do every week, and it's so much fun. I have a blast doing it. I try to put in like garbage answers that people guess, and actually, you picked Memphis, which Memphis wasn't even one of the answers in.
I didn't even remember Memphis even having a baseball team.
Nah.
That's why I didn't go with it. I was like, I don't remember them even having one. And I remember Washington. I remember theirs dissolving. That's why I actually picked it.
Yeah. But like I said, Tabitha, you're welcome to hang around. We'll go do our other segments, but Adam usually bounces out after the quiz. But before you bounce out, Adam, got the pickle shot, brother. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
And like I said, we just have like 2 or 3 more little segments to go until
I
we're
just
done.
want to know, is that pickle shot a Canada thing or something?
No.
It's just something
No,
y'all just drink. There, look.
So when I first saw Adam's podcast, he was like literally drinking out of a pickle jar, you know? And I was like,
I love that. I love that.
I was like, who is this guy? What is he doing? And I don't know if he's trying to gross people out or what he was doing, but it was an honor. It was an honor to just have somebody so crazy just doing this crazy stuff
when you're doing
you know?
your podcast, you're supposed to have a hook. And that's his hook, was drinking out of a pickle jar.
It's like, hey guys, and I was like trying to gross
he was
people.
He was just like, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't even know if he's even drinking it.
That's freaking funny. I like that.
Yeah. So that's why I do the pickle shot tradition. But
Yeah, I gotta get my pickles. It's been a while. I gotta get pickle jars again for this drink. Yeah,
there you
podcast.
go. Well, thanks for joining us, Adam. Really appreciate it, sir. And like I say, you've actually you held the crown for like a whole month before, so
Hey,
that's
Adam,
pretty awesome.
I beat
That's-
you tonight. Just
Yeah.
let that stew for the whole week, all right?
Yeah. Well, good luck to your Winnipeg Jets and going into the playoffs, sir. And we'll have you on again, sir.
Adam, I just brought that up. The stars are on your tail, boy.
Oh yes, sir. It's gonna be. We're likely gonna meet in the playoffs. We'll see.
I think so too. If they meet in the playoffs to who goes to Stanley Cup, every week is going to be freaking awesome on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be
talking to luck, man.
Yeah, it'll likely be like Western Conference Final too if we meet. So it's gonna be the stakes will be really high.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome, love it.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna go on to the tour review.
Yep, tool of the week. Here we go, brother.
It's time for Tool Review of the Week. Sponsored by Electricians Only Tool Review and Nipex Tradesman.
All right.
So this week I ran into this new product. Actually, Klein hooked me up. And I really like this thing. It's a non-contact tester. Actually has a laser on it. And what I really like about it is the laser is really highly visible. It's really cool because I work in industrial and we have like a lot of really high ceilings, a lot of really, like long distances and stuff. And it's really nice to like get your point across, just being able to kind of like laser point saying, hey, we're going to put the support from there to there and we're going to do this from there to there and stuff like that. So this is a really valuable tool for like industrial work. And so I use it a lot. And then the thing I do like, I'm not a real fan of non-contact voltage testers, but I do like the pin that actually goes inside the receptacle. That actually makes it nice because some of the new non-contact testing equipment that comes out these days, it doesn't have that little pin that can go in the receptacle and actually give you an accurate reading on if that receptacle is hot or not. And a lot of these are actually cool because you'll have different trades that come up and ask you, oh, hey, Sparky, does this have power? And then you just, boom, yep, it has power, or, oh, nope. And so it's really cool, valuable tool. I use it a lot. A lot of people don't trust Klein tools for testing equipment, but they must have changed whoever they're getting manufactured through in recent years, and I say they're a lot better. I trust Klein tools a lot more testing equipment than I do some of the other knockoff brands that are out there, just non-contact glow testers, stuff like that. But I recommend this, and like I say, if I was going to get a non-contact one, this is the one I'd get. I don't trust a lot of the other ones out there, but actually, when me and King James did this, you have your live test. This is actually compliant with 70E when it comes to live dead live test.
Yeah. And those are one of the things that, we spent quite a bit of time explaining all that. So, yeah, that's a good one.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, like I say, shout out to Klein for hooking me up on that tool review. And like I say, I got it on my vest, and it's been working all week.
Awesome.
So, what do we got?
Man versus machine.
Man versus machine. Let's do it.
Oh, God. Let's see what you got here.
For years, man tried to create artificial intelligence. On this segment, we find out, is AI smarter than King James?
So just
All
so
right.
you know, Tabitha, what confuses AI, like what confuses ChatGTP, is the multiple choice part. Like, if you just ask the question, it usually gets it right. But if you do the multiple choice part, it like gets it wrong for some reason. I'm not sure why. But
Okay.
the other funny thing about this is that I call him King James because actually LeBron James actually was not the first King James. Actually, King James actually was a basketball player for he was a basketball player before LeBron James. So he was the first King James. You know.
I'm
Oh, okay.
I'm typing everything in right now.
Yeah, so like what I do typically, Tabitha, is I copy and paste my questions, and then I put them into ChatGTP. And it's funny because this one I think ChatGTP is gonna get it right because it's just a
Okay.
calculation. But when it's just a multiple choice code question, it seems like it just guesses.
I'm
I'm
adding
trying.
that
Okay,
right
hold on.
now to see what it gets. Divided by 11,500. Okay, so that should be 208 equals. Okay, I'm coming up with 8 point. Well, it's about 658. So I got C 8.6. So let's see what Chat GPT says. Let me put it on where everybody can see it here. Share screen, Chat GPT, and let's ask it and see what it says. Given the options, there is B 9.75. I went with C. So, Bill, what was it? Where'd he go? So you got to go add it up to see if he's right or not.
Oh yeah, he disappeared. Okay, I'm looking at that, but
I mean, that full screen. Let me go over here and increase this so everybody can see it a little better.
okay.
It
Yeah, sorry about that. Somebody's asking me a question. You are right, James.
yeah, E squared divided by power. Yeah, that's what I thought. It came up with 9.75 and went with
I don't understand. I'm so blown away. It got it right every single time in a row that I asked it the question. And now all of a sudden it gets it wrong live on the show. I don't understand. I'm so blown away. I thought for sure it would get it right, but
well,
there you go. There you go, kids. Don't cheat on your homework with ChatGPT. You're not gonna get it right. So,
Chat GPT ain't got nothing on the king.
yep. There you go. I think it's like so far it's like ChatGPT's only got one right.
You see what I'm talking about, Tay? He asked me all these freaking questions like this. He did one the other day. He did it with power factor. I was power factor and efficiency on it, and I was like, that's not something you're doing every day. I had to sit there and think about for a second the formula and everything, and then I went through and I actually did the formula wrong the first time. It wasn't matching up, so I went to the next formula, and I was like, oh, that's the formula. I was like,
Wow. I actually went through two apprenticeships. I went through the Navy and then I went through local one apprenticeship. Now, the thing about me being an electrician for 33 years, like with the power factor and with the theory and everything, I never use it other than just going through the apprenticeship. I think it's one of those things they just want you to see how good you are in math, see if you can comprehend. I do not know how to use the power factor or when to use it. I never use
Right.
that. I never use calculations because I'm not on that side of it. Like with the
Oh
teaching
yeah.
part of it, or like engineering or anything with the designing. So I think they just do that to just make sure you can comprehend and
Oh
be in
yeah.
the trade, to just make sure you're good at math, because you will use it when you're pipe bending and certain things with the math. You're going to have to be really good at it. But I'm really impressed by that.
Well, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
when I was going through the apprenticeship, that's no lie. We actually studied chip design and stuff like that, and going and doing all the gates and using the resistors and all
Mhm.
that and calculating for that. We actually had to learn that when I was going through apprenticeship, and they don't even teach any of that stuff now.
Yeah, we learned a lot of things that we just don't apply it. Like with the what was the Pythagorean theorem? Like when do you use that?
You don't.
You when?
So, so
Right,
I
you just
use it all the time. I use it all the time.
are you
So
So
serious?
he does for
yeah,
bending pipe.
Okay,
I
yeah,
under,
for that. Yeah, that's the only yeah, for bending
so
pipe with the angles.
yeah, so I taught Daniel this technique when he was a first year apprentice. And basically, what you do is you bend a degree, doesn't matter what degree, and then you put your bender up against it, and then you measure off, you put a mark, you bend it to the center, that's your offset, you know? And, yeah, dude, awesome, John. That's so cool, man. Dude, appreciate you, John. I'm gonna actually
Cool.
start that comment. I'm gonna send him a little like on that one. But the thing that's funny about it is your offsets come out perfect every time. Doesn't matter what size pipe. And I went and I started this new company, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, do you know Daniel J?" I was like, "Yeah, I know Daniel J." He goes, "He's the best pipe bender at the company." I was like, "Guess who taught him?" That was
Right.
me. So, we just have one more segment. We have the wall of shame, and then we'll sign out.
All right, let's
We'll
cue
roll
it up. Let's see what we got this week.
Shame. 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 Shame.
I
Always
I
crack
know
up.
King James will
Shame.
love this one. King James will love this one, man. This one is like, and the thing that's crazy when you see it, oh man, like look at all the painted surfaces on there. Like you're calling that a good ground? Oh man,
Nah, that ain't gonna work.
that is 100% shame. Like look at all that paint. Like there's no way there's anything touching anything. And then what is that ground rod? Is that like it just looks like a piece of like steel that like it doesn't even look like ground rod material. Like
They
I don't
painted
know.
over it for damn sure.
I mean,
Yeah, and
I
then they
don't
have
know.
too many conductors under that acorn clamp. It's too
Yeah,
many.
absolutely,
Yep, it's
100%.
not even
It is.
listed for that many of conductors under there.
Hell, I'm
Yeah.
trying to look. Is a screw missing?
Yeah, it looked like a set
Yeah.
screw, like
Yeah.
a set screw with an Allen. Because I thought that as well until I saw it recessed inside. Because I can see those threads.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it recessed in there? It's hard for
yeah,
me to see it.
it
It
could
looked like
be.
a set screw.
But I mean, they definitely are not following the listing and labeling
No.
on that, ground connection. It looks like they have another one down lower that they just tagged in too, like another one that they just slapped in down lower.
They did.
Also, if it's aluminum, because I just failed the inspection maybe a week ago, aluminum cannot come in direct contact with the earth within 18 inches.
That's right. Got to
Oh,
be 18 inches
100%. That's a
above.
good call too, Tabitha.
And I can't tell if that is or not.
I
'cause they
can't. It's
over
painted,
it.
but I can't. But I'm not sure. But it's painted, so that's yeah. You can't paint. Yeah.
I think that would be like a drive-by inspection, Tabitha. You just drive by, nope. Try again.
You know, it was funny, Tabitha, the other night. It's probably been about a month ago, month and a half. I was going through the drive-through, and I was talking to Bill, and I pulled up as a Jack in the Box, and I'm sitting there, and I just looked over. I go, you can believe this crap. I saw where they came in with a utility and where they had an old meter base. They took and left it there, and then they came out of that meter base and went over to a brand new meter base, and they took and cut some type of plexiglass or something and just fit it in there and then pressed it up against the conductors. I was like, I've never seen. I said, you didn't believe this, Bill. I was like, I took a picture. I said, you got to see this crap. I said, I just happened to be driving by and getting something. I was like, it just caught me. I was like, I've never seen the utility do something like that.
And it was like, I was like, dude, let's put it on Wall of Shame, you know? So that's kind of where we come up with these segments, Tabitha. Is, you know, we're like electrical people, and we see this kind of stuff, and we're like, oh, man. And, you know, so it's really fun. I have a group called the Electrical Wall of Shame that I created. And it was just really fun to, so the reason I created the group is I was running electrical service a lot. And we would just see so much crazy stuff every day. And I'm like, I have to post this somewhere on Facebook, you know? And then I started doing it, and then I just created a monster, and then all these other people started doing it. And now the group is almost 250,000 members, you know?
Wow.
And so
That's good.
It's just fun, and we just do this for fun. It's a lot of good times, you know, doing the myth of the week, like, there'll be guys at work like, oh yeah, you can't do that. One of the examples to give you, Tabitha, is I did can you drill out a bell box in a weatherproof location, you know? And I was always told you could not do that because you void the listing and, you know, listing and labeling, and that it's not suitable for a wet location anymore. But then me and King James, we went into the manufacturer instructions, and it says you can drill them and use those as the mounting holes as long as you silicone the screws afterwards.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I would think like with the bell box with the threaded holes, you know, the threaded on top. That's why I would think you could not drill that. That's why I would think that. But if you showed me that, see, that's the type of inspector I am. Show and tell. If you can prove
100%.
it, I will read it.
Me and King James, we did it on a show. We showed it. It was the manufacturer instructions right there. It said, it gives you those little divots. There's little divots in the bell box. It says those little divots can be drilled out as long as you silicone the screws after installation.
So those little tabs in the back, like those little tits on the back?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You can knock them out. You don't even have to drill them.
Okay.
You can knock them out with a screwdriver, and then you could mount your box like that, and then you just have to silicone your screws afterwards.
Yeah, because I'm thinking just looking at it with the threads, that's why it was threaded like a hub to make sure that it was watertight. But I never knew that. But that's why I like this, because you learn something new. You just have to keep your mind open and never close your thoughts or your mind or your thought process.
No, we are very honored to have you, and we just had a great time doing this. You got to meet all our regular contestants that always show up every week, and it means a lot that you could come by and hang out with us. And like I say, I appreciated being on your show. Thank you so much for your hospitality, and you know, you're a very knowledgeable inspector. It meant a lot for me to just have that constructive dialogue and kind of move forward as a electrical professional, and you know, try to help each other succeed in the industry. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to try to get that up and running where I can continue with the call-ins, because right now I just want to just keep my feet wet and keep going and getting better at it. But that is the original concept, is to call in and ask the question. So just keep coming over to Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast and ask the questions that you need. And anytime you would like for me to be a guest, or if you want to talk about a specific topic, just contact me the way that you did, and I'll make it happen.
Awesome. Well, no, it means a lot. And the one thing that I wanted to say that is really funny, So King James, he was on this NEC Live. They had like NFPA, like we're doing like their own podcast. And I suggested that James go on it because he's so knowledgeable and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he was sitting there going through code sections so fast they couldn't even look him up on NFPA link fast enough. They actually had to tell him to slow down because he was going through so many sections. And then it was funny because they actually have questions like in the chat and everything. And they say, "Oh, we have a question for Bill Snyder," and he just started busting up laughing. That was like before I even knew him really or anything like that. And so when I got that reaction from King James, and it was Derek Bixtall, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, Derek.
And they're all he's one of the representatives from NFPA, and they both of them start busting up laughing, and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be a good question," you know. And my question was if transformers are required to be listed, like class 1 transformers, not class 2 transformers, but class 1 transformers. And you know, it's kind of a loaded question because, you know, technically class 1 transformers aren't required to be listed. Maybe the enclosure is required to be listed, but not the actual transformer itself.
I think you asked me that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I said, depends on your enclosure, not the transformer. I said, you
True.
pick that up over in 110.29. And he's like, and Derek goes, how do you know all these freaking sections? I said, I've been doing it a long time, brother.
Years, yeah.
Well, you know how I actually learned everything is we do the publications and we put a lot of sections in for our illustrations and loops and things like that. And when you got to look that stuff up over and over and over to make sure you don't make a mistake, you know, and we do make mistakes, but you start getting real familiar with the code book. There was a time I quit doing it, but I used to tell you what page it was on, what side of the page it was on, and which column. You know, we were doing this like 3 weeks ago, I guess. That guy Jeremy, come on. He goes, well, you have to use a PowerPoint. And I said, well, no, I don't. And I just did this whole motor problem off the top of my head and was saying, go here. Just broke the whole thing down in silence after that.
Wow.
And
So I have this really funny story for you, Tabitha. So we tried to do kind of like how you joined with like little slides and everything, and James posted slides.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had his dad on as a guest, and his dad was doing this thing on 25066, and so we're sitting there, we're texting each other while we're on the podcast, and he's like, "Can you believe this? I never even heard this before." And I was like, "Dude, this is amazing." You know, we're sitting there texting back and forth. Next thing you know, his dad's like, "Turn the dang slide, son." It was so funny. And,
he doesn't really know how to do the podcast stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And he literally told us, and I know you never heard this before. This is how long he's been doing it, but he was there when they developed the table for table 25066. He literally told us how they did it.
Really?
And he said, you go over and look at 25122, you take your size of your overcurrent device, and he said you put the multiplier 189 on it, and he said you go in, then you get the circular mill from chapter 9, table 8, and that's how they did the circular mill to determine the size of the grounding electrode conductor.
Wow, okay.
And I was sitting there, and I've heard a lot. I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and I said, "Whoa, what'd you say?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "This is how they did it." And he goes,
You weren't saying it. He was doing the presentation on our podcast. He was actually texting it to me.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Holy crap, dude! Can you believe this?" And I'm sitting there I'm getting texts from him. You know, we're on live podcast, and I'm sitting there like, "Oh, dude, I never heard that either." I was like, "That's pretty cool." And so we have like all these chats coming in the comments and everything. And next thing you know, he's like, "Pay attention, son." You know, and it was so funny. I was like getting him yelled at because I was like texting him, and I'm sitting there trying to like get the comments and everything. It was pretty funny, and we learn a lot. Like, so there's one that's specific to Missouri that I ran into before, one of the myths, and they said that if you run anything on the bottom of a meter pan, it's considered to be a dry location, you know?
If you run anything under
So
the
like if
bottom of
you
a meter
if
can.
yeah, like if you have your penetration, like whatever
Uh-huh.
you have coming out of the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have to use like a wet location connector or anything because it's
Oh.
considered to be a dry location, right?
Okay.
And I don't know where this came from. I have no clue. Like I've just heard it a lot, you know. Like the people will always come in the comments of like different groups and everything, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's a dry location." So I'm sitting there telling this to King James one time. He's driving down the road. All of a sudden, old man's like, "Oh yeah, that came from 1968," and he started just giving us this whole lesson on where it came from and how it got past all these inspectors and everything, and it was just amazing, you know. I was like, whoa. But both of us were like in shock. We're just sitting there listening. He started giving us this whole lesson about how all these different myths like come about because you know these they didn't have any weatherproof enclosures. They didn't have weatherproof fittings back then, and they were like, nah, just keep it on the bottom side, and then you know what I mean, you're good. And they just put a drip pan on it, or I can't remember exactly what he said, but they had this whole thing from 1968, and somehow that got passed through all these inspectors, always still in today.
The
You know?
reason now, the one thing that I can think of when you mentioned that coming out of the bottom versus coming from the top is because what I know about that, the enclosure and the weatherproof connector, is because it's over a overcurrent device.
Yeah, that
Like if
would
it's
be when you
coming,
need like the sealing
that's when you
lock
need a
rings and
weatherproof because it's
yeah,
over like a fuse or a circuit breaker. And if you come in the side, if it's not directly on top of the overcurrent device, you can come in the
yeah,
side or the bottom and you don't have to use a weatherproof. And
yeah,
a
and
meter
you're
can't hear.
lower.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're lower than
The
where
overcurrent.
the yeah,
Hmm.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. But it's just like that's why I got into the myth of the week because I'd hear stuff. You know, like there was one week I was at a job site and I was like, yeah, I do this thing called myth of the week, and it's like where you can't put cable in a conduit. And he's like, you can't. And I was all, what? He goes, yeah, you can't put cable in a conduit. I was like, how do you protect it from damage? You know, and then we're out on these like industrial sites, and you have cable and conduit all over the place.
A raceway within a raceway. Like you can't
Yeah,
put a cord, like a flexible cord, through a conduit. Like it's a raceway within a raceway. Like you can't unless you are protecting it by with what do they with
so
a nipple.
so
Not a, yeah.
so the raceway and the raceway is kind of the myth a little bit because technically a cord is not a
Sleeve.
raceway.
It's a sleeve.
Yeah, so so I actually I don't know if you know this, but I actually submitted a whole bunch of like public inputs for 2026, and I actually submitted a new definition for to define sleeve
Mm-hmm.
because you could actually fill a sleeve to 100%. Like there's no conduit fill for a sleeve. Like there, it's not a nipple. It's not a raceway.
A
It's
nipple
not.
is anything over 24, anything under 24 inches.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a sleeve. A sleeve could be 10 foot,
That's not a
and
sleeve. That's a full. Now, how we interpret it, that's not a sleeve
uh-huh.
because that's a full stick of conduit. It's not.
But
If
it's
it's,
not. It's
mhm,
not terminated on both ends.
it's not a sleeve. Yep, that we wouldn't consider because a sleeve or a nipple would be anything less than 24 inches. If it's 36 inches, that's not a sleeve. That's in the code. Let me see if I can. Well, oh boy, got myself in
Yeah,
trouble.
like
24,
I don't think. I honestly
24.
I don't think sleeve is defined in.
Sleeve, yeah. Nipple. It's because it's like a it's a nipple. I'll see if I can
But
find it.
we deal with this King James
Mm-hmm.
in like gas and oil and in like industrial a lot, where you come off a tray and you have like a tray, you have like tray cable, and you have like let's just say a 2 inch, and then you pipe over and you hit the panel.
Okay, here we go. Because with the it's in 310.15C1 with the current carrying conductors and with the 24 inches. So the ampacity, and if it has more than three single conductors or multi-conductors not installed in a raceway without maintaining a spacing for a continuous longer than 24 inches. See, that's what we constitute as a sleeve, because after you get over 24 inches, that's when you have to start derating. If it's grouped together and bundled together.
But I would actually make the argument that that's terminated on both ends.
That it's going to come down to interpretation, and it's going to come down to the authority having jurisdiction and how they view that. So maybe they'll have that in writing, because that's how we interpret that. Like with the sleeve, it doesn't have to be terminated on both sides. If it's a 10-foot stick of conduit, that's not a sleeve. Even if because what you're saying, box to box, or it has to have an ending. Because the code also, well, that's a raceway, because it also says that like a piece of conduit, you can't have wire. It can't be. I'm trying to think of the wording. It has to be a complete, like mechanically connected. It has to be complete.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason why we bond our EMT to the tray, or we bond our rigid to the tray in gas and oil. Like it has to be a complete system. So if like you can't just set your rigid on top of the tray, like it has to actually be physically window clamped and bonded, to that tray.
Like a
so
U-boat.
Complete.
If you're using conduit, you might be using a U-boat, because I did work at a refinery here. We do have one over in Wood River, Illinois.
Nice.
So I've done that sort of work before. So I do understand.
And what we're doing is we're making that electrically continuous.
No difference in potential.
But I'm not really sure how it went. Like my public input might have got rejected. I haven't really checked back on that one. But what I tried to do is say that it's not complete on both ends, and it's not required to be essentially a completed system if it's a sleeve. So a good example of this is, like, let's just say that you have to have some cables like pass under a wood floor. Then you would just sleeve across that wood floor. Like that conduit is not essentially part of the electrical system. It's just all it's doing is it's just making a pass through for those conductors underneath underneath something. But we'll see. I don't know if my public input will pass or not, but I tried to define sleeve.
Okay. You want it defined. Yeah. You want it defined. Yes. That's good.
I want it defined as a raceway that's not complete on both ends.
Okay. We'll see what they say. What happened to James? Did he get stuck?
No, I'm just sitting there listening.
Oh, you look. It was like you were still, like you did not move.
I just sat there just letting y'all go at it.
Yeah. No, I did like quite a few public inputs, and it was pretty fun to get involved in the code making process. This is the actual first cycle that I actually submitted public inputs, and it was really cool. I got a lot of really good feedback. Actually, a lot of contradictory statements from all the different code making panels. Like, I actually had one pass, a 62554. I added one word, and it added like 3 pages to the code.
Wow.
So,
that's going to be something to look forward to. I'll look for that.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I have to get off of here because I have to wrap up with some things I have to do before the night is over.
Thanks so much for staying for the whole show. We had a great time, and
Sure did.
Thanks so much for Daniel J, John, Warren Brothers, David Englehart, Weed Man. Thanks so much, everyone, for showing up. Means a lot, and we got the comment record from Weed Man this week, so Appreciate it. He asked the same question 987 times, so we're not gonna answer it. But everyone, you all have a great week. Thanks so much for joining us, Tabitha.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we will look forward to going on the Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast call center, and I will be on there
Thank you.
asking you questions.
Thank you.
So we're
Thank
gonna
you
go
for
ahead and
having me.
wrap it up. We're gonna wrap it up.
Wrap
and,
it up.
Guys, have
As
a great
always-
evening. Thank you.
As
Have a
always,
great night.
You
Remember-
too, Tabitha. It was nice talking to you, love.
Thank you.
Make every day an easy day.
Peace out.
Okay. Thanks.
See y'all next week.
Got it.